Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, I have news from on high. The bongo drums have been beating, and a certain royal, and I'm not going to indicate what sex the royal is, and I'm not going to indicate who it might be, beyond saying who it definitely isn't, because everybody who knows anything about me knows that last week Princess Olga was here with me, and it's definitely not her. Let me put it that way. But it's another royal, and whether it is a homegrown royal or a foreign royal is not something I am going to indicate, and for obvious reasons, because I have been rung up and asked to make the point that there is tremendous dissatisfaction that Harry, in his ITV interview, had the unmitigated gall to indicate that the late Queen was supportive of his action against the newspapers, and that she would want him to see it through to the end. Now, I am told that the late Queen and the present King and the future King all were as one with the fact that the British nation needs a free and vigorous press, and that while the royal family can, in a particular instance of tremendous abuse, do what Prince William did, which was sue news group newspapers, and they settled. I think it was for £1 million. And I think that he handed on the money to charity. In fact, I think he handed it on to Harry, or for Harry's cause. That's right. Harry was also offered a settlement 10 times less and turned it down, because Harry felt that he's as important as William, and therefore he deserved equal damages, when in fact, first of all, his complaints were minuscule compared to William's. Secondly, many of William's complaints were not directly related to William, but involved Catherine. And there were definite breaches where Catherine was concerned. And now this also, incidentally, all goes back many years ago. So we're speaking about over a decade ago now. Well, Harry has opportunistically jumped on the bandwagon. Evidently, Harry has told people that this is one of his life's causes, and it's a sacred cause. And he's going to slay the dragon on behalf of Meghan and Mummy, because both Meghan and Mummy were abused by the press. My understanding is that in royal circles, the belief is that it has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with money and everything to do with Meghan. And there's also, of course, the fact that both Mummy and Meghan sought the publicity that they then complained about. Both of them are well known to have shared one failing in common: they being publicity hounds and setting up the very thing they then complain about. Well, I am told that I want to be careful how I put this, that the royals themselves are of this strong opinion that Harry is misguided. You notice, incidentally, if you saw the broadcast, he did an awful lot of sniffling. I wonder if Harry suffers from a nasal drip and why he suffers from nasal drip. Maybe he's prone to colds. Aurora, Mickey, darlings, please run into the kitchen and bring Mummy some Coke. She understands that Coke is very, very good for nasal drips. Well, evidently, the royal family itself is very committed to retaining a free press, and they are evidently as one with me in the fact that this country needs a free and vigorous press, and it is not in the interests of this country to have anybody trying to destroy the press. At the moment, Harry and his cabal, and I don't know if you noticed, if you saw that program, that David Sherborne features in practically every clip behind every single one of the complainants. And they are complaining about matters that took place 30, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, all of which have been resolved, and the filthy practices which existed have been cleaned up. Now, Harry can complain about the way he was treated. I don't think Hugh Grant has quite the justification as Harry, because Hugh Grant featured big and strong as life on the programme. Hugh, darling, if you hadn't been caught with your member in Divine Brown's mouth, I'm afraid that none of the interest that then devolved upon you and your activities would have devolved upon you and your activities. So I think maybe you should actually understand that although what they did was where you were concerned was wrong, you triggered it yourself. Now, nobody has more of a valid complaint against the press than I do. They damaged a good 40 years of my life. They knew they were lying and they persisted in their lies. From the very outset, They knew that the very first story they were writing was inaccurate, and they wrote it inaccurately. They gave it a headline that they knew was not true. I was 25 years old. They damaged my life, and if I can tell you that I'm in favor of a free press, and that I think what Harry is doing is a disgrace. Now, my understanding is that the royal family itself is in accord with me on the point that all of the misbehavior has been cleaned up. And we are all aware of the fact that the press in this country generally has a far harder time of it existentially than it did 30, 20 years ago. Things were far different. There was no internet. The newspapers were far more powerful than they are now. They are now fighting for their very survival. And it is outrageous that this cabal of attention-seeking, rather greedy, sanctimonious hypocrites, in my view, would try to be destroying the newspaper companies who are already fighting for their survival. Harry, if he had any sense of responsibility, would understand that we need a free press, except Harry is all in favor of censorship. To actually, though, state that, oh dear, Aurora, come honey, come. She's heard something else. Come, Aurora, come to Matty, come baby girl, come on. At a time that the newspapers are fighting for their survival, Harry is trying to pretend that he is embarked upon a worthy cause. Had he done this 20 and 30 years ago, it might have been a worthy cause. It's no longer. They have cleaned up their act. He is not only taking advantage of the situation, but he is doing it because he is worried that the truth about his wife will emerge. That's the word on not the street, in the palaces. He is desperate to make sure that he and Meghan continue to have the liberties that they take with information as they promulgate it. I understand also that there is concern that Harry is aiming to have Piers Morgan imprisoned. I mean, unbelievable. And the program was commissioned as a result of Harry's friendship with Tom Bradby and his relationship with Dame Caroline McCall. Wiser heads than mine have pointed out that Dame Caroline McCall could well have decided that it would be in the interest of ITV to lead the whole of the media world in this country by creating a void insofar as newsgroup newspapers, Mirror Group newspapers, and associated newspapers would be concerned. So if they are damaged and knocked out of the running, she's bigger and better. Do you see the twisted thinking in all of this? But the main thing is the royal who contacted me said they are absolutely, and all of their lot are absolutely, and I'm going to use the word bemused, although that's not the word that was used, that Harry would have the unmitigated gall to lie and state that his grandmother would be supporting his attempts to destroy the free press in this country. Harry also made the point in the programme that the main reason why his relationship with his family has soured is because he is fighting this noble fight and they refuse to support him. So they're treacherous and they betrayed him and they're disloyal and they're currying favour with the media when they should be jumping on Harry's hobby horse with him and behaving nobly. Well, Harry, here's a word from a royal mouth, and I now quote. Actually, I'm not going to quote. I'm going to paraphrase, just in case it becomes recognizable who has told me this. So let me paraphrase. Harry must have been stoned, or he has taken so many drugs that his mind has been blown, and he now believes that the late Queen would have supported him when she was absolutely dead against it, as indeed was his father and his brother. I think he made that clear in his book, Spare. The whole thing is an absolute outrage. How dare that jumped up, drug-addled, by his own admission, creature try to state that his late grandmother would have supported him in the destruction of a free press in her country. Harry's opportunism is inexcusable, and I don't care whether he's drug-addled or not. He is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And to put words in his grandmother's mouth that she never uttered and would never have uttered is outrageous. And Harry, if you think I'm being unjust, sue me. I'll see you in court, you little jerk. T. Cohen says, is just Harry totally clueless? The BBC reported The Duke of Sussex has said his decision to fight against intrusion from the tabloid press has been a central piece behind the breakdown of his relationship with the rest of the royal family. The only one to intrude was that traitor, just Harry. What do you think, Lady C? I think it's ludicrous. I think that Harry has forgotten that he has betrayed the royal family. He has intruded upon their privacy. He is saying that he is fighting the good fight to clean up the press so they won't intrude upon anybody's privacy. But he has intruded upon his family's privacy. First of all, he's lied and said that the Queen supported him when she didn't. That's the first thing. The second thing is he invaded his brother's privacy to the extent that we now actually know the size and configuration of his private parts. We also know too much about Harry's private parts. But he can intrude upon his privacy. What about intruding upon his sister-in-law's privacy? Revealing private communications. Harry has invaded everybody's privacy. Harry has destroyed any moral rationale he had for embarking upon the course of action he claims to be embarking upon on moral grounds. Harry is a bigger intruder than the press, because the press didn't know the state of his brother's private parts and reveal it to the world. Now, there is nothing more invasive than to be discussing people's private parts in public. And I can tell you, I know what I'm talking about, because the basis of my lawsuits against the newspapers over a 40-year period was the fact that they invaded my privacy by discussing my private parts. I mean, it is so outrageous that it leaves me speechless. He really has to be drug-addled, or then totally irrational, or both, or then a total imbecile, which I suspect we think he might well be. But having said all of that, the program itself did cover important ground, because there is no doubt that the press used to be extremely abusive and invasive. And had they stuck to just the historic aspects and not tried to opportunistically and, in my view, amorally and unjustifiably try to penalize the press in the present for actions in the past that have already been dealt with, we would have no complaint, but we do have a complaint. Fergal says, "Hi Lady C and Fur Babies. Thank you for your entertaining videos. I recall you saying a while ago now that Harry could only spend a certain amount of days in the UK. I forget the reason given. Tax. Liability for tax in this country. Notwithstanding the fact there is a double taxation treaty between the United Kingdom and the United States, the wriggle room is different in each country. And Harry, having sought the protection of Delaware, would discover that in the United Kingdom, the tax authorities, HMRC, His Majesty's tax department, would be an awful lot less sympathetic than the creation of the tax haven that is Delaware. Let me continue. Surely the forthcoming proposed 4-week visit would seriously eat into his quota. You're referring to the fact that Harry has managed to leak the news that he is proposing to come to the United Kingdom for a 4-week visit. Yawnsville. Let's see if it happens at all. Okay. First of all, this could just be for publicity. Secondly, Harry could be trying to mend fences or getting out the message that he's trying to mend fences. Then when they're not mended, it's the mean, nasty royal family and all those ghastly people who have been holding things against him and Meghan that they shouldn't be holding against them, because they want to leave the past in the past. Except Harry and Meghan, it's very difficult for people to forget treachery, because treachery is not an accident. It is a character flaw. Harry has also, let me rephrase that. Harry and Meghan's people have also been planting stories about the fact. So, for instance, the Express has stated that Harry has sent Catherine a heartfelt note to take out the violins and let's play, hoping for a reconciliation. He's supposed to want Catherine to leave the past in the past. Harry, it's going to be really difficult for Catherine to leave the past in the past when she knows, and I know, and everybody at Givenchy who saw it knows, what went down in that dress fitting with Charlotte. I just make that point for what it's worth. How is Catherine going to embrace you, Harry, when she has her own personal struggles? Does she need, Waity Katie, I really love you, and I didn't say that you're a racist, nor did Meghan. The press said it. And of course, Catherine's going to have to say, oh yes, Harry, of course. We all know the press made it all up. All those accusations were made up by the press. Poor you and poor Meghan. You're such victims. Yes, of course. According to Heat magazine, and I'm going to read this, Harry was watching Wimbledon and was thrilled to see Kate looking so radiant. He sent her a note to congratulate her and let her know how happy he was to see her out. He's just so grateful that she's on the mend and able to get back to her duties after taking time off, as is Meghan. And he's convinced that this is the perfect time to try and repair his and Meghan's relationship with his brother and sister-in-law. Quoting, even though it's an awkward situation for all of them, they both think the sooner they can put all this behind them, the better. Harry can't believe it ever got to this point. He genuinely thought that by now they'd have found a way to reconcile, and he hates to think of it continuing. Of course, he hates to think of it continuing because he realizes that his prestige has been damaged and their earning ability has been damaged. Harry, take it from me. I have been betrayed by a member of my family. You never forgive it, Eve, and you don't forget it either. Why would you be surprised that your family doesn't want to associate with you? Why are you surprised? And also, why are you leaking all of this stuff to the newspapers? Because Catherine certainly didn't leak it. That's for sure. And Harry told Closer. Harry is very anxious. Sorry, I should say Harry's sources told Closer. Harry is very anxious to go home and see his dad, catch up with his friends for his birthday in September, and also, sorry, and also pay a visit to his aunt, Princess Anne. Now, is that the Princess Anne who is supposed to have been the racist as well? Oh, maybe there's another Princess Anne. I thought there was only one, but maybe there are two. Anyway, let me continue. But that situation hasn't changed for Meghan. She's respectful that Harry has to go back to his home for practical and emotional reasons. But that doesn't mean she's going to go with him. She wouldn't be received if she went with him. And if she were received, it would be under sufferance. And nobody wants to receive him either. That's what I'm being told. And especially after Harry's brazen assertion by lying about his grandmother's support for his attempt to introduce censorship in this country and to destroy the newspaper industry in this country. I mean, they will send us mad. They're clearly barking, the both of them. But they will send us mad with all of their nonsense. GLT says, sounds like the Meg is all over this. She is setting it up so after Harry is brought back into the fold and a little time has passed, Harry will bring her back in. Well, I'm afraid that's not going to happen. First of all, nobody particularly wants Harry back in the fold. And they want Meghan as much as they want the most ghastly disease, which they regard Meghan as. So, there we go. And I'll tell you, if you haven't figured it out yet, the general tone in this, let me rephrase that, the general tone within certain circles is now hardened to the point where Mishal Husain of the BBC felt able for the first time in years to complain about the fact that Meghan lied about their engagement interview and the way she conducted it. Think that the timing of this is anything but revelatory of the attitude towards Harry and Meghan. They are thrashing around, making all sorts of false claims and maybe trying to knock on doors, hoping that they will open, that have slammed shut. Because Mishal Husain made it absolutely clear that Meghan lied when she told Oprah that the engagement interview was orchestrated and was basically a fabricated reality show. Harry and Meghan were well prepared. They conducted the interview, and Meghan's complaints about Mishal Husain were totally unfounded, unfair, and untrue. So when they said that it was an orchestrated reality show, as Mishal Husain said, and I quote, "I didn't know what to make of it. They seemed to have thought through what their new lives would be like and what marriage would mean for her life in particular." There was nothing that pointed to what would happen. It was two people who were full of joy in each other and life. Well, they then decided that it wasn't convenient, so they simply lied. It's as simple as that. But the mere fact that Mishal Husain is able to state on record now that basically they were lying should be indicative of something. Of course, one of the indices, in case you might have missed it, as well as one of the indications, is that Harry and Meghan are now big, right up Caroline McCall's esophagus, having reached there from, well, let's leave it at that. They crawled up to her esophagus. They have made their choice. So maybe this is also the BBC's way of showing that it understands that the choice has been made. Of course, that doesn't mean that day after tomorrow they're not going to be using Harry and Meghan against whomever it's when it suits them to do so, because they will. Got a Laugh says, "Dear Lady C, so pleased your gala was a huge success and was so excited to see the photos. I skipped forward to see them. Sorry, but then did a rewind to the start to hear your thoughts and your comments on Harry's wife's endorsement of Kamala Harris, which brings me to another point. Knowing that royals have no say in politics, either working ones or grifters, am I correct in thinking Harry's wife's endorsement goes against royal protocol? And what action, if any, King Charles may take regarding the matter?" I'm going to answer this as I go along reading it out. It absolutely goes against royal protocol. It goes against every representation and every protocol relating to any constitutional monarchy. It is outrageous. What can King Charles do about it? Nothing. Meghan is an American citizen. Meghan has made it clear that she is not attached to the British royal family, except when it suits her to be financially, or I should say in her financial interests to be. She's playing off both sides against the centre, in other words. I think it's something that Bill Simmons would say would be indicative of grifting conduct. I think if my assumption is correct, this is Harry's wife's game plan, thereby freeing herself from the ties that bind so she can focus on her ultimate goal, and is Birmingham Invictus 2026 used to force the royals' hand, with his added claims for IPP enhanced status. Sorry, lots of content to cover. I know, but that's always the way with those shoddy shysters. Okay, here's the deal. It's all a try-on. It's all ridiculous. I don't even think we need to waste our time delving too deeply into any of it. Meghan and Harry hope that by attaching themselves to people of note, they will wield influence and through influence make themselves a lot of money and be acknowledged as very important people. I think it's called a massive ego trip of too greedy. Well, I won't use the word that Bill Simmons used. I will say opportunists. And I think let's leave it at that, shall we? And let's end with something entirely different. No says, Lady C, please give us your thoughts on the latest revelations about FBI reports linking Prince Philip to the Profumo Scandal. Did you read the report? It couldn't be more sketchy and gossipy. Mr. Connolly, or whatever his name is, has reported that the gossip in London is that Prince Philip might have known Mandy Rice Davies and Christine Keeler. Ludicrous. That's actually not the real link between Prince Philip and the Profumo scandal. And there is no actual valid link. Prince Philip did not know either Mandy Rice Davies or Christine Keeler. I know this because Christine Keeler lived with or was married to one of the Pringles in Jamaica. The Pringles in Jamaica are a very grand white Jamaican family. And John Pringle had a cousin whose name escapes me. He was a friend of my brother's who either lived with or married Christine Keeler. I think they might have just lived together. Oh, so that must have been in the 70s or 80s. And you can imagine how, shall we say, horrified everybody was. But anyway, Christine Keeler did not know Prince Philip. Mandy Rice Davies was Christine Keeler's tag-on. She didn't know Prince Philip either. Had they known Prince Philip, they would have made much of it. Christine Keeler said that she didn't know Prince Philip. I think we can take it as fact that she knew what she was talking about. Now, Prince Philip, who was actually a somewhat talented painter, did know Stephen Ward. Stephen Ward was what was described as a society osteopath. He was evidently very gifted, and he also was a very talented painter. Now, I know this because it must have been in the 1980s. Several of his portraits came up for auction at Christie's South Ken. I saw them and I went to the sale. I used to go to the sales quite a lot in those days. And I noticed that there were two very bespoke suited men in the back of the room. And the protocol was that after the pictures had been exhibited for viewing, they were taken down and taken to the back of the room, so the back of the auction gallery. And these pictures, duly, when they came up, their lot numbers came up, they had been withdrawn from the sale. And I looked behind me and saw, and I'm not going to mention the name of the auctioneer because he's a very eminent auctioneer, and I liked him and he, I think, liked me. So I'm not going to embarrass him by mentioning his name. The two men behind looked at him and he responded and looked at them as well. They were making absolutely sure that the pictures had been withdrawn. One of them was an absolutely exquisite pastel. Stephen Ward was a wonderful pastel painter of Princess Alexandra. There were several royal portraits. He was a very gifted pastel portraitist, and he did an awful lot of people. He was extremely fashionable. He was also supposedly with MI5, and he was thrown to the wolves by MI5. It was a disgrace the way he was treated. And he used to treat Prince Philip for polo injuries. He also treated loads of other people. And he was also what I suppose in those days you would call a man about town. He mixed in very, very elite circles. Yes, he liked young girls and he used to like being naughty with them. But he was certainly not a paedophile. They were all young girls who were going to climb the vertical ladder horizontally. And nobody thought anything of it. I mean, those girls would not have been taken to drawing rooms in Belgravia, Mayfair and Chelsea. They might have gone to the opening of art galleries. They might have gone to vernissages. But they would not have been received privately by anybody of any social note. And sophisticated circles are very sophisticated. They understand that ambitious girls from nowhere who wish to make their way in the world might be window dressing at certain events, but they are not personally desirable in a private context. Prince Philip, his link to the Profumo scandal was fabricated by gossip. The FBI report is based upon gossip. And the closest link and the most material link, which I have covered before, was Lord Denning in his report, the Denning report into, I think, improprieties in public life, as a result of the Profumo scandal and John Profumo being forced to resign and practically bringing down the Macmillan government, was the rumour that Prince Philip was the man in the mask at the Thursday Club. And I have covered this before, so I'm going to cover it very briefly. And the man in the mask was supposed to have been somebody who was undressed and at the Thursday Club, which was a luncheon club above Wheeler's, one of the most eminent and respectable restaurants in this country and therefore in the world. The idea is ludicrous. And the gossip was that Prince Philip was the man in the mask and that Margaret, Duchess of Argyll, was there as well. And I heard this from Margaret because Denning, she refused to go to Denning and Denning had to go to her at 48 Upper Grosvenor Street. And she was outraged, as she had every right to be. And Prince Philip had no link whatsoever to the Profumo scandal. In reality, it was all gossip. So I hope that covers that subject. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so maybe we can cover what you find interesting, because that is my aim. Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.